You know that feeling, right? That excitement when a brand new phone drops, all shiny, promising the world.
Absolutely. And right now, all eyes are on the iPhone 16 Pro.
Yeah, tons of buzz, for sure. But alongside that, we're starting to see these reports trickle in from early users. Things maybe not working quite as expected.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've been digging into those user reports, looking at what people are actually finding with the 16 Pro since it launched.
And looking at potential fixes too, right? And what Apple's saying.
Yeah, where available. We've gathered all that.
Okay, so our mission today basically is to kind of cut through the noise, give you a clear picture of the main issues people are talking about.
Look at maybe why they're happening, what you can actually do about them, if anything.
Right. Give you the context, save you scrolling through endless forums because we've done that bit for you.
Hopefully.
Okay, so where do we start? Let's talk about the basics. Actually using the phone, the touchscreen.
Right, touchscreen responsiveness. That seems to be a pretty common theme in early feedback for the 16 Pro.
What kind of things are people seeing?
Well, reports of screens just not registering taps sometimes, or the opposite phantom touches.
Phantom touches. Okay, that sounds weird.
Yeah, like the screen reacts when you haven't actually touched it, and just general difficulty maybe getting input registered, especially near the edges.
Near the edges. And didn't you mention the new camera control button area too?
Exactly. That area seems to be a bit of a hot spot for these reports as well.
Huh. So any ideas why this might be happening? Is it just like first week software kinks? Or something deeper?
Well, there are a couple of leading theories floating around. One is about the palm rejection algorithms.
Okay, the software that stops your hand from accidentally pressing things when you hold it?
Precisely. If that's maybe a bit too aggressive, it could be ignoring actual intentional touches.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
And the other thought ties into the design itself, those super slim bezels.
They look great, but maybe they make it easier to accidentally touch the edge.
That's the idea. More accidental contact could be, confusing the system. It's a tough balance for Apple to get right, visually appealing versus perfectly functional.
Yeah, those design trade-offs again. So, okay, if you're out there listening and you're actually dealing with these touch problems, what can you do right now?
Well, a few things seem to help. Surprisingly, maybe, using a case.
A case. How does that help?
Specifically, one with slightly raised edges. It just creates a physical lip, makes it harder to accidentally touch the very edge of the screen.
Simple, but maybe effective. Okay, what else?
Software updates. Always number one with a new device. Make sure you're on the latest iOS. iOS 18.0.1 specifically, mentioned addressing some touch issues.
Right, always update. Good reminder.
Definitely. And then some users have found, maybe as a temporary fix, disabling that new camera control button helped, or just doing a reset of all settings.
Reset settings, okay. Worth a try if it's really annoying you, I guess.
Might clear out some odd glitch, potentially.
Okay. You mentioned that camera control button, again, seems to be popping up a bit. Let's focus on the camera app itself. Any gremlins reported there?
Oh, yeah. Definitely hearing about issues within the camera app. Things like it just freezing up.
Oh, the worst time for that to happen.
Exactly. Or lagging, making it hard to frame your shot quickly. And then more serious stuff, too, like getting a black screen instead of the camera view.
A black screen. Or the app just crashing completely.
Yeah, crashes, too. Sometimes when switching lenses, apparently, or when you're in the middle of recording video.
Oof, that's fundamental stuff for a phone camera. Not good. And that camera control button, you mentioned its function. How does that play in?
So that button has a new slide feature for zooming, right?
Right.
And it seems, for some people at least, it's just too sensitive. They're finding they accidentally adjust the zoom when they didn't mean to.
Ah, so you brush against it slightly and suddenly you're zoomed way in.
Something like that, yeah. It's disruptive if you're trying to carefully compose. Shows how tricky introducing new physical controls could be.
For sure. So solutions for these camera woes. What's the advice?
Again, number one, make absolutely sure you're running the latest iOS. We mentioned 18.0.1 before. That one specifically fixed a bug causing camera freezes.
Okay, update.
Always. Beyond that, the usual suspects. Try restarting the phone. Sometimes that's all it takes to clear a temporary glitch.
The classic turn it off and on again.
Never underestimate it. If problems hang around, you could try uninstalling and reinstalling the actual camera app.
You can do that with the native app.
Yep, and maybe, just for now, stick to the main camera app rather than third-party ones. They might not be fully optimized yet for the 16 Pro.
Good tip. Stick with what Apple provides while things settle down. Okay, let's shift gears. Overheating, always a concern with powerful new devices. What are people reporting?
Yeah, overheating is definitely coming up. We're seeing reports during fast charging, which isn't totally unexpected sometimes,
Right, fast charging can generate some heat.
but also during intensive tasks, heavy gaming, maybe recording 4K video for a while. That's maybe more expected too.
Okay. But is it happening outside of those heavy loads?
That's the more surprising part. Some users are saying it gets noticeably warm even during pretty casual use. And a few have even gotten actual temperature warning messages unexpectedly.
Wow, a temperature warning during just normal use. That doesn't sound right. Is Apple saying this is normal or?
Well, Apple's official line is that yes, the phone can feel warm temporarily during things like charging or right after setup when it's indexing everything or during updates. That's normal operation.
Okay, temporary warmth is one thing.
But they also say persistent excessive heat, especially if it triggers those warnings, could indicate a hardware issue.
Ah, so there's a line between normal warm and potentially faulty.
Exactly. And it's figuring out which side of that line your experience falls on. It really makes you think about the thermals in these incredibly powerful thin devices.
It does. Okay, closely related. Battery life. Another area people are always super sensitive about. How's the 16 Pro holding up in early reports?
Yeah, definitely seeing some complaints there. Users feeling like the battery drains faster than maybe their older iPhone. The iPhone 13 Pro often gets mentioned as a comparison point.
Faster than the 13 Pro. Is this happening all the time or is it more specific?
It seems particularly noticeable in the first few days, maybe the first week or two, after getting the phone and setting it up.
Ah, okay. And isn't that pretty common with new phones, the initial setup drain?
It often is, yeah. The phone's doing a lot in the background initially,
Wow.
indexing all your files for search, downloading apps, migrating data if you restored from a backup.
All that background activity munching through the battery.
Exactly. It puts a pretty heavy, though temporary, load on the battery.
So it's not necessarily a sign of a bad battery straight away, it just needs time to settle.
That's usually the case. Apple typically suggests giving it a good week, maybe even two, for everything to finish optimizing and for the battery management to sort of learn your usage patterns.
Okay, patience is key there. And after that initial period, any tips if the battery still feels a bit weak?
The usual best practices still apply, really.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on background activity. Maybe turn off 5G if you're in an area where the signal isn't great or you don't need the absolute top speed.
Right, 5G can be a drain.
And make sure auto brightness is on for the screen. That helps manage power quite effectively.
Good, solid tips. Okay, let's move to something maybe more jarring, random reboots. Or resprings, as some call them. What's happening there?
Yeah, some users are reporting their phone just suddenly restarting on its own. No warning. Sometimes multiple times a day.
That would be incredibly frustrating.
Definitely. Others describe seeing that spinning wheel, this sort of gear icon, which was basically the home screen process crashing and restarting a springboard crash or respring it. Then it comes back to the lock screen.
Still disruptive, even if it's not a full reboot? Any clues about what's causing these?
It can be a few different things. Sometimes restoring from a backup that was somehow corrupted can introduce instability.
So the backup itself brings problems over.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Also, specific apps that maybe aren't playing nicely with the new iOS version yet could trigger crashes. Faulty apps are a common cause.
Okay, software conflicts.
And then, unfortunately, if it's happening really frequently and randomly, it can sometimes point towards an underlying hardware issue.
Right, the more serious possibility. So if your new 16 Pro is doing this, what are the troubleshooting steps?
First, like with the camera issues, make sure all your apps are updated from the App Store and double-check you're on the latest iOS version. That clears out many software bugs.
App updates and iOS updates. Got it. What if that doesn't fix it?
The next step might be to try reset all settings. It doesn't delete your data, just resets Wi-Fi passwords, wallpaper, that kind of thing. Sometimes clears weird configuration glitches.
Okay, a bit more involved, but still safe for your data.
Right. If it still persists, the more drastic software step is a full factory reset and setting the phone up as new without restoring your backup immediately. That helps isolate if the backup was the issue.
That's a bigger step, obviously, losing your setup.
It is. And one more thing for the slightly more tech-savvy.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually look at the phone's diagnostic logs.
How do you do that?
You usually need to sync with a computer, use the console app on a Mac. You're looking for entries that say panic or panic full. Those often indicate a pretty serious system-level crash, sometimes hardware-related.
Panic logs. That's a good specific thing to look for if you're really digging deep. Okay, let's switch to the physical phone itself. Durability, always a big topic with new iPhones. What are the early drop tests and reports saying about the 16 Pro?
It's been a bit mixed, actually. Some drop tests show it holding up reasonably well, as you'd hope.
But,
But other reports in some videos suggest the screen might be a bit more prone to cracking on impact compared to, say, the previous generation.
oh really? Any theories why? Could it be those thinner bezels again?
That's the main suspicion, yeah. Less bezel material around the edge might mean slightly less structural protection for the glass right at the perimeter.
So the quest for that edge-to-edge screen might have a durability trade-off.
It's possible. Seems like protecting that screen might be even more crucial this year.
Which leads to the obvious recommendation.
Use a case. Seriously, based on these early signs, a good quality protective case seems like a very sensible investment for this 16 Pro. Minimize that risk.
Sound advice. Better safe than sorry with a device this expensive.
Okay, shifting back to software for a moment. Apple made a big splash announcing Apple Intelligence, their new AI stuff. How's that rollout going?
Well, that's another area where there's been a bit of a snag. Those new AI features, the smarter Siri, advanced tech stuff, they've been delayed.
Delayed, like not available at launch.
Not fully, and especially in the EU, there seem to be delays related to regulations. So users who are really excited about trying that AI suite right away.
Or finding it's not quite there yet. Exactly. It's led to some disappointment, understandably. The hardware is ready, but the full software experience is still pending via updates.
Right. So the current AI experience on the 16 Pro isn't quite the full picture Apple painted initially.
Not yet. It highlights the challenge of launching complex software globally.
Okay. What about other, maybe more minor hardware niggles? Build quality, speakers, anything popping up there?
There have been some scattered reports, yeah. Minor things, but noticeable to owners. Some people feel the new titanium frame scratches a bit easily.
Scratches on the frame. Anything else?
A few mentions of finding tiny dust particles inside the camera lens assembly, which you really don't want to see.
No, that sounds like a potential quality control slip.
Could be. And also some reports of inconsistent speaker quality, maybe one speaker sounding louder than the other, or just variations in clarity or balance.
Little things, but they can add up to feel less premium, can't they?
They definitely can, especially at this price point.
Okay, and what about connectivity? Bluetooth is crucial for headphones, cars. Any issues reported there?
Yes. Bluetooth is another area with some hiccups being reported. Things like AirPods randomly disconnecting during calls or music playback.
Annoying. What else?
Problems pairing or maintaining connections with car systems seem to be mentioned too. Trouble with hands-free calls or streaming audio in the car.
Yeah, that's a major inconvenience if you rely on that. Okay, one last specific area, the display. It's got that fancy 120 hertz promotion, right? Super smooth.
Supposedly, yes. That adaptive 120 Hz refresh rate is a key feature.
I sense another but.
Well, some users and some technical analysis have suggested that in many situations it seems to be capping out lower than 120 Hz, maybe around 80 Hz more often than expected.
Huh. So you're not always getting that full 120 hertz smoothness, even though the hardware supports it.
It seems that might be the case in some apps or scenarios. It could make it feel perhaps slightly less fluid than some competitor phones that might maintain higher reads more consistently.
Interesting. Is that something fixable in software, potentially?
You'd think so, yeah. It might be about how Apple is currently implementing or tuning the promotion behavior in iOS 18. Something to watch in future updates, for sure.
Definitely. Okay, wow, we've covered quite a bit of ground there. Touch screens, cameras, overheating, battery, reboots, durability, software delays, build quality, connectivity, display refresh rates.
It's quite a list for an early days assessment.
It is. So, wrapping things up, what's the big picture here? What are the key takeaways for someone listening, maybe someone who has a 16 Pro or is thinking about getting one?
I think the main thing is, look, the iPhone 16 Pro has a lot going for it. It's packed with new tech. But like many new product launches, especially complex ones, it's hitting some initial bumps.
Early adopter territory, perhaps?
Kind of. The good news is that many of the software-related things, touchscreen, camera glitches, Apple, seems to be aware and are pushing out fixes via iOS updates. So keeping your software updated is absolutely critical.
Rule number one, again.
Absolutely. But if you're seeing persistent issues, especially things that smell like hardware, that constant overheating, the random reboots that don't stop, maybe those build quality concerns, then don't hesitate to contact Apple support.
Get it checked out professionally.
Yeah, get their diagnostics run. And as we said, given the durability questions, A case and maybe screen protector are probably wise investments.
Solid advice. So keep updated, use protection, and talk to Apple if problems persist, especially hardware ones. If people want to read more, follow these discussions. Where should they look?
Good places are sites like Digital Trends. They often cover user reports. And the official Apple Communities forums are where users themselves are discussing these things in detail.
Okay, we'll make sure links are available alongside this deep dive.
Perfect.
So, bringing it all home, the iPhone 16 Pro, lots of advancements, but definitely facing some early life issues, some software, maybe some hardware. Updates are helping, but vigilance is needed.
That sums it up pretty well. Stay informed, use the troubleshooting steps.
Which leads us to our final question for you, the listener. Thinking about all this, what really matters most to you when you choose a new phone? Is it the cutting-edge features, reliability, design, something else? And how do these kinds of early reports, the good and the bad, shape what you expect from the phones coming next?
Yeah, it's interesting to consider how tolerant we are of teething problems versus wanting perfection out of the box.
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the early days of the iPhone 16 Pro.